It's a pile of balls.
Let It Die is a game developed by Grasshopper and published by Gung Ho. And it's a game that I've, in passing, mentioned several times as a game that I like. You should go play it. No, seriously. I never really went into detail as to why you should go and play it, which I'm going to attempt to do now. But I feel like my use of words, my overall vocabulary has grown greatly, and I feel like I have the capacity to explain why I like this free to play game that people seem to think is a coin muncher. So, what is Let It Die? It is, and I really do hate the comparison, but it is kind of like a Souls game in which you have to climb a tower, and every floor of this tower is named after a train station in Japan, a Japanese train station. You create fighters of different classes, and each one have specific stats, and you're constantly picking up weapons and armor because it is a game that is very much built around durability. Now, durability in a lot of games has been kind of like a controversial topic, and I can understand why, but Let It Die is designed with that durability system in mind. So, one of the reasons that I'm a personal fan of the way it's done in this game, particularly, is I like the concept of mine broke, so give me yours. And that's something that you do a lot of in Let It Die. Your weapons will constantly break on you, but so long as you're taking out enemies with efficiency, you can take their equipment when it's available. It's not always available. When they drop a weapon, you can take that weapon. And as long as you have the stats to use it, then it comes down to your personal skill and your proficiency. Now, a lot of people will run into a situation where they're doing relatively okay early on, and then they come across a boss or um, somebody sends a fighter to invade their game, and they encounter a wall that they just cannot overcome. And they think, oh no, this is where the game wants me to spend a bunch of money so that I can constantly revive and brute force my way through the game. That's not what they want you to do. And I understand that it's an option, and as long as it's an option, people are going to think that that's what the game wants you to do, especially when it comes to money. But there's a lot of statistical play that goes on in this game that the game itself does not really explain. And I will admit that that is very much a flaw. That when it comes to defensive stats and offensive stats, you're really just kind of left to figure it out on your own and try different things until you find something that works. And when the game is constantly dangling a insert more coins to continue in your face, I can see how it would look like a greedy cash grab type of game, but it's honestly not like that. So, what you're able to do is you're able to buy what the game calls death medals, I'm sorry. And these have multiple functions. Now, the one that is most commonly known is when you die, you can spend one death medal to come back to life exactly where you fell. Um, that's really not what I would use them for. I have used them for that. In fact, most recently I did, and I shouldn't have. And I knew that. I said multiple times that what I was doing isn't how you're supposed to play the game, and that it probably wasn't going to work. And surprise, surprise, it didn't work. I spent 5 death tokens trying to brute force a boss, and I'll go into that in a second. But the other functions of these death medals is that you can buy exclusive gear that is on a daily rotation. Now, this is a gear that you can find the blueprints for by just playing the game, but if you want to rush it and have it instantly, you can spend the death medals on it. Another use is there is a kind of weird gacha system involving something called decals. Decals are essentially stickers that you can attach to your fighters to give them specific stat boosts and various gimmicks. An example of that is if you have a head, body, and leg piece from that's all fantasy styled, then you'll get a bonus to your defense and stuff like that. You can also use them to expand your storage, which is what I most definitely recommend you do. If you get, so the game will give you death medals for events, daily login rewards, overtime. You can get them as quest rewards. If you get them, I highly, highly recommend that you don't waste them on anything except storage when you first start out. But you most definitely do not want to try and brute force your way through a zone that you get stuck on, because upgrading the equipment that you start with, that you buy from your lobby, your home base, is super, super important. And if you don't do it, you will encounter difficulty walls more and more frequently. So I mentioned earlier that I was trying to brute force my way through a boss. Now, that boss, I know its weakness. Its weakness is piercing. I was being a lazy bun, and I didn't upgrade any weapons other than slashing weapons. And for a long time, that was more than enough to carry me through the game. It was working. But once I reached an enemy who resisted slashing, I didn't have any options. So rather than go back and try and upgrade a weapon that had piercing, I tried to brute force it with the death medals.
He's so tough.
And I lost my best fight. And the game slapped me on the wrist and said, no, do it right. But I think that you can absolutely go through the entire game without spending money on death medals or even using them, because everything that you can get with death medals, you can get with coins that you earn via game. And it really doesn't take that long as you aren't being wasteful like I was. So if that's a concern, and I know that it really is, like, the more time passes, the more it kind of spread around that Let It Die was like a weird Dark Souls, like arcade sort of thing. And I can see how that misconception can get spread.
This is it.
But I do really want it to go away, because I think that Let It Die is a fantastic game with an amazing soundtrack. And I think that people should at the very least give it a try. It is unfortunately a game that you have to play with a keyboard, not a keyboard and mouse. Sorry, don't play it with a keyboard and mouse. No. You have to play it with a controller, because the keyboard and mouse controls are really bad. But honestly, the same could be said about Dark Souls.
No. Oh, come on.
As far as the actual combat itself, it's actually relatively, it's significantly more in-depth than a lot of other Souls clones, in that when you first pick up a weapon, you pretty much only have like a standard attack. And as you defeat enemies with it, you obviously gain proficiency with it. And the more proficiency, the more moves you unlock. So eventually you have to basically unlock power attacks and longer combos by upgrading your proficiency. So just use that weapon type more, and you get better with it. And that creates a unique situation where if you're out and you're exploring and fighting and stuff in the tower, and you defeat an enemy and you pick up a weapon that you've never used before, it's probably not going to be a very good time. But I encountered a situation where I never found the blueprint for a very specific weapon. It's a spear. But I had picked up so many of them and used them as just the drops, kind of procure on site sort of thing, that my proficiency with it was really, really high. So I was always really excited when an enemy dropped a spear, because it was a weapon that I had just kind of trained myself to use, even though I myself can't get it from my own lobby. So it's a really neat situation where it's like, sometimes getting a weapon that you've never seen before isn't always a good thing. Also, the inventory system is relatively brutal. So getting new blueprints for weapons and armor actually takes up a slot in your inventory. So if you're out and you're doing your thing, you've got a bunch of healing items and buff items, and then you come across a blueprint that you've never seen before, you kind of have to go, how badly do I want this? Sometimes not badly enough. Sometimes it's really, really worth it, especially if you pay attention to the color of the blueprint, which some of them are gold or rainbow, and those are the ones that you really, really want to get. But just picking them up isn't enough. You have to pick them up and take them all the way back to your lobby. If you die and you can't recover that fighter, either with a death medal or by paying money at your lobby to retrieve them, and you'll lose that item. And you won't get to see what the blueprint actually is because they're all question marks until you reveal them. So there's a lot of fun to be had there, really. There are enough different types of weapons that no two accounts are ever really the same. The people I do know who've played the game all got like completely different weapon types and decided to upgrade different things for different reasons, which creates some pretty fun conversations about, how their progress through the Tower of Barbs is going. So yeah, that is Let It Die. I think the big takeaway is, or one of the big takeaways is that it's free. Free to start at the very least. I mean, I believe that it's free all the way through, but there really is no harm in trying. But keep in mind that the game is incredibly difficult. So, don't get mad at it and leave a negative review after, 30 minutes of playing it because you used your death medals on the first boss because you weren't paying attention to what you had on you or anything like that. Like, treat it like you would treat a Dark Souls game. It's going to be frustrating at first, and you're going to get your butt kicked. But if you come at it with the same type of determination that you would a Souls game, and I know that there are a lot of you Souls fanboys out there, I think you'll really have fun with this. Anyway, yeah, let's Let It Die. Give it a try. It's available on Steam and PS4 and PS5. I don't know about Xbox. I'll have to check that. But definitely recommend. It's something that I can pick up and play and drop whenever. Kind of like Warframe, except a little bit more. There's a little bit more meat to it than Warframe. Anyway, yeah, that's it.